One of the biggest mistakes we make when having a conversation with a person is thinking that that conversation is all that matters. When in reality, every one conversation is actually the part of 3 different conversations. There's actually the conversation, but then there's the pre-conversation and the post-conversation. For example, a pre-conversation, that would be your bias, hurt, anger, perspective as you walk in to the conversation. This is incredibly important. Why? Because if you have negative emotions before the actual conversation, that's called emotional contagion. Those negative feelings actually bleed into the conversation. One psychologist says it's kind of like you passing along a virus or the flu or a cold to a person. It just seeps into the conversation. So remember, what you're thinking before the conversation ever happens, that is going to dramatically change the actual conversation. So we have to work on our self-talk. Are we always thinking negative things about this person? Well, if we are, then we have to counteract that with purposefully thinking of positive things about that person. If we don't deal with emotional contagion, it will bleed into the actual conversation. But there's not just the pre-conversation, there's the post-conversation. Like when the conversation's over, what do you think about it? Do you think it was a positive interaction? Do you think it was a negative interaction? Do you think you were walked on during the conversation? Do you think it was all you listening and the other person just talking? You may even think that the actual conversation went well, but later when you're talking to your friends, they talk you out of it. They tell you, no, you got walked on during that conversation. How did you find common ground with that person when in actuality, we as a group really disagree with that person? When walking into a conversation with a roommate, a spouse, a friend, just remember that conversation is bookend by 2 other conversations. The pre-conversation, where we have to pay attention to our self-talk, the post-conversation, where we have to pay attention to our verbal communication with others as we frame what happened. Sad to say, our conversations are actually pretty complex. It's what happens before and after that will actually determine the success of the actual conversation.